I read this very beautiful little incident about a student, about a girl in a school, and the teacher was asking everybody, what's your father's name? What's your mom's name? And this little girl was sitting there and she says, what's your mom's name? And she said, my mom, I didn't grow in her stomach, I grew in her heart. She was an adopted child. I thought it sounded so good. You didn't grow in the stomach, but you grew in the heart. And that's what adopted children are. They come from nowhere. You don't even know where they come from. You don't know their background. You don't know their lineage. You don't know their parents, who they are. But when they come into your home, you grapple them to their soul with hoops of steel, like Shakespeare would have said. You give your love and affection, and they kind of nurture. It's like a little plant you put in, and you put in water, you put in fertilizer, whatever it is, and the plant grows into a tree. And that's what an adopted child is, like a little sapling which comes to your home, and you grow that into a beautiful oak tree, jacaranda tree, whatever it is. And today that's what we are going to talk about, adoption. And I have with me two people who are the only two people in Bangalore who can really say something meaningful about it, because they've been doing it for a long time. I have Aloma Lobo. Hi Aloma, welcome.
Hello. Nice to be on your show.
And Laxmi Suparna. Hi Laxmi.
Chaya.
Now we're going to start about adoption. Now before we do that, I'd like Aloma, if you can introduce yourself, please, and just a brief introduction, and we'll go from one to the other, kind of.
Okay. My name's Aloma. I'm married. I have 6 children. I at one time was chairperson of CARA in New Delhi. I am now chairperson of the Adoption Coordinating Agency in Karnataka. I do what I like best. I work with children.
Hi, I am Laxmi. We ran adoption center by name Chaitanya Vidyalaya, Chaitanya Child Welfare Trust.
Okay.
And I run a music school, and we have a school for the underprivileged children. Well, I'm basically a musician.
Okay.
Have given a lot of concerts too, and cut about a couple of cassettes.
You're a Carnatic music person.
Yes.
Okay. Aloma, anything else you want to add before we talk about other things? Yourself.
I'm a doctor by profession.
You're a doctor, medical doctor?
A medical doctor, that is correct.
Okay.
I enjoy traveling. I now have 3 grandchildren. Mm-hmm. And, I think most of all I enjoy my family, I enjoy my work. And I think there's not much else to say. Maybe in the course of what you ask me, I'll discover a little more about myself too.
Actually, once we begin this discussion, we'll be talking about the things that you do more, than about yourself. So this is your time to say something about yourself as Aloma, the person, Laxmi, the person.
Okay, the person. It's hard to say something about myself, but as my kids would tell me, I'm bossy. Okay. I talk too much. I am always in their face.
I hope you will live up to that today about talking too much.
I'm not even going to tell you what my husband says. And I love my friends. I have a lot of friends. I gym every day, so I have friends of a different age group altogether whom I really enjoy. And I enjoy my school moms who are in the same school as my daughter. They're all young enough to be my own daughters, but I enjoy being friends with them. My youngest child is just 13, so that's a new experience altogether.
Yeah.
And something that has brought us, what shall I say? It has brought us new life. Both my husband and myself, new life. Mm-hmm. And she just reached that stage when she's getting a mouth on her. Mm. So we're enjoying it. Yeah.
And Laxmi, have you thought of anything else you want to share?
We have a daughter who's married recently, and I have a lot of young little children who come to me to learn music, and it's fun being with them. And I love children.
Okay, so we have here 2 people who love children and who make it possible for other parents who don't have children to say, I love my child. And let's see how they facilitate them. What are the problems? So many things. So today we'll talk about the entire aspect about adoption. And I'd like to start with you, Aloma. Would you like to say when you got into it, how you got into it? And then we could discuss if Laxmi wants to add on to what you said. This is now a discussion.
Well, I first got into adoption, if that's what you'd like to call it, many, many years ago, about 33 years ago when I adopted my first child. And then it became part of my life And at that time, adopting a child was not very well known. People were a little wary of it. People didn't know what adoption was all about. And when we adopted our first child, it was something new to the average person on the street. So it became a topic of interest. And it is from that time that I started talking to people about adoption, talking to them about what a lot it meant to us, how our child became a part of our family so easily because we already had 3 children before that. And it became part of our lives to talk about it.
Why did you adopt when you already had 3 children?
Well, it's very difficult to say why. I think there's no reason why.
Okay.
But there's a need within ourselves that we wanted another child, and we decided this was the way to go. And and if you ask me why, I can't tell you why.
How did you go about doing it?
Well, my husband...
Because you're talking about 30 years ago, no, Aloma?
Yeah.
When, like you yourself said, it wasn't a very happening thing at that time. How did it happen with you?
Well, it's something that we wanted to do. And we had talked about adopting a child even before we got married.
Okay.
But, man proposes and God disposes. So we had 3 sons very quickly.
Okay.
And then decided to
He
wait.
disposed in a very good way.
Decided to wait for just a couple of years. And then we decided, while the children were still young, we may as well adopt another child. That's what we did. And
This time also did you adopt a boy
no, it
child?
was a girl.
Okay.
And then after a few years, we adopted another girl. And then many, many, many years later, we adopted a 3rd child.
So you have 3 adopted kids and...
Well, let me put it this way. We had 3 birth children and we
And
have 3 girls who were adopted. They aren't adopted anymore. They're our children.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, adoption is just a process.
Yes, I know. They've just become, now they've grown into your heart.
Grown into my heart. My gosh, they stick in there. They don't even go out if I want them to.
All right. So then when you adopted the first child, what was the reaction of your biological children?
Oh, to them, it was just getting another sister. It was just another baby coming to the house. Children to children, it doesn't matter how a child comes in. It's a sibling, it's a sibling, it's a sibling.
Okay.
And they were 4, 5, and 6. And to them, getting a sister was just the most natural thing in the world. I mean, we got another sister. And like one of my sons said, Mama, if you want to get another baby, couldn't we also get another baby pig at the same time? So you see, to children, we're just getting another baby into the house. And
It's like getting another pig into the house?
they wanted a pet. So they figured the baby sister could not be a pet, so could they please get a baby pig as well?
Okay, all right.
So to them, it was just a baby coming to the house. It didn't mean anything positive or negative. It was just something that happened.
Laxmi, would you like to add something to that?
Yes, we were childless for a couple of years and then we thought about adoption and we adopted a baby girl.
Okay.
And now she's a beautiful woman who is married.
Oh, okay. That's your adopted, the girl
Daughter.
who grew in your heart.
Yes.
Okay.
So after then we decided that we need to do something for these kind of babies. So that's when we thought about starting an adoption center.
All right.
And we started in 1996 and placed about 80 babies in good homes. They are all doing fine with the parents and we still keep in touch with all of them.
Okay.
It's a lovely experience.
Now I'm going to ask you, I don't know if it's difficult or it's loaded or it's just a curiosity question. Where do you get these kids from which can be put up for adoption?
Well, the children come in 2 or 3 different ways. One is they come into agencies or into orphanages or whatever you want to call them.
Okay.
A child may be relinquished by its mother or its parents. And the most usual way is an unmarried woman who brings her child in on account of the social stigma attached to it. She's unable to keep her child, so she gives her child up for adoption.
Okay.
The second is the abandoned child. The child who is either lost or deliberately, quote unquote, lost. And this child is found somewhere and that child comes into an orphanage. Then the Child Welfare Committee goes through the whole process of trying to find the family. And if they don't, then they release the child for adoption.
Okay.
So the 2 main things, a child is either relinquished or a child is abandoned. Those are the 2 main ways a child comes into an orphanage.
And the first person to pick up this child, the first organization is the CWC, Child Welfare.
No, the child could be picked up by the police, it could come into the agency, but they have to present the child before the Child Welfare Committee.
Okay.
They have to make...
Is it an autonomous body, the Child Welfare Committee?
Yes.
And formed by the government?
It's a judicial body, actually, yes.
It's formed by the government?
Yes.
And the people who are manning or womaning this are appointed?
They're appointed.
Okay.
So they do a very thorough job of checking out the credentials of the
the
child.
background.
If it's a mother who's relinquishing her child, they talk to the mother, they see if she could take the child back. And then after they've studied the whole issue, then they release the child for adoption, if that's what the final verdict should be.
Laxmi, has it been the same with you too? How did you get your adopted child?
Well, we got it through the police, and of course, there is the child helpline called the Makkala Sahayavani.
Okay.
So that goes in rotation. So every organization gets a child
Through
in
this
rotation.
Makkala Sahayavani.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And sometimes we used to get the relinquished babies.
Uh-huh.
And of course, abandonment also was there. And most of it through the Child Welfare Committee.
How did you adopt your child?
Well, my child comes from an agency,
Okay.
and 33 years ago, the processes were different. They were
Like
quite
what
different.
was it like?
Well, at that time, they did a home study. They did all the necessary investigative processes.
And these agencies were private agencies, or
They
were
were
they?
private. They were private. And then they after they found that we were okay, we were eligible for a child, they gave us a child, and then we went through the legal process.
And the legal process.
At that time, took a long time. Today,
Okay.
it still takes a long time, but slightly shorter than the 2 years it took us.
And what do they do in this? What is the legal process?
Well, at that time, see, the processes have all changed over the years. At that time, there were just two ways that people could adopt. There was only the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, under which Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, and Sikhs could adopt.
Okay.
They were the only people who could legally adopt a child, giving the rights and privileges of a biological relationship to both the parents and the child.
Okay.
And anybody other than these religions could not adopt, but they could take a child in guardianship, a legal guardianship under the Guardianship and Wards Act.
Okay.
Today it's changed. Today there's the Juvenile
Then how
Justice
did you
Act.
get it? You're Aloma Lobo.
Yes, I'm a Christian, so under the Guardianship and Wards Act.
You got it through that.
Yeah. Now, and today it's different. Today the laws have changed. There's the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, as it always was, and there's the Juvenile Justice Act, under which gives you the same rights and privileges of a biological relationship, and it's applicable to everybody.
All the communities.
Yeah, to everybody. It's all religions, really. Yeah.
Lakshmi, how did you get your child?
Well, our process was very fast. It was from Pune, and we didn't have any problems at all. It was done in a day. And then we brought her home, and it was very fast.
Why is it being delayed now?
Actually, there are lots of checks and balances. And the checks and balances, I would say, are necessary to ensure that a child is not being trafficked, to ensure that the parent... See, we're not finding a child for a family. We're finding a family for a child.
Yes.
Our focus is the child.
Very good.
And the checks and balances are needed, except that the time frames that are put into place are never really
Realistic?
kept to. No, they're very realistic, I believe, but they're never kept to. And consequently, the process is drawn out and strung out to such an extent. Number one. Number two, I think what very few people understand is that there are very few children today who are available. I hate to use the word available, but that's the only word I can find right now.
Yeah,
who are available for adoption. And most Indian parents want healthy children 1 year and under to the best possible extent. And few people want children older than that. And up to 3, perhaps it's not difficult to place an adoption. But there are very few children available today.
Why do you say today?
Because it wasn't the case 15 years ago or 10 years ago. There were a lot more children in the orphanages.
Is it because the in vitro fertilization and everything
No,
is happening?
there are two reasons. One, there are many more parents waiting.
Okay.
So
Many more wanting to adopt.
Many more parents who want to adopt. Today, adoption...
The supply and demand kind of
That's
thing,
one
is
thing.
it?
And there are fewer children. Now, I cannot say why there are fewer children. And I guess there are several reasons. That there's different theories. But one thing is in vitro. But that's one thing. The second thing is today abortion is much more easily available to women who want to abort their children.
Okay, for the unwed mothers. And
Yeah,
all
for the
that.
unwed mothers. Actually, no child is ever unwanted. Someone somewhere wants that baby.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
Correct me.
absolutely.
Yes.
You're an old friend. I can do that. And well, also sometimes one theory is that there is a parallel system of adoption going on, which is the illegals.
Okay.
Line of adoption.
I'd like to talk about that also, I mean, Lakshmi, what do you have to say about what Aloma said just now? Because I want you to add your take on it.
Well, what you said was the right thing, which has happened. Until 2008, we were getting a lot of babies into our organization. And then, the mothers used to come and relinquish. But then when the child welfare
You mean
committee,
they'll come themselves and
they used to come. They get to know of the organization. And when they get to know that it's a registered agency, and they do a bit of homework on that. Some of them, as I have met a couple of them who knew about these organizations. So they used to come and talk to us, and then once the child welfare committee was formed and this relinquishment, they wanted the mothers to come into the light and talk to the person, whoever is there, because the mother definitely wouldn't want to disclose her identity. But then it became very tough because when they insisted that the mother come and talk to the committee, and they were trying to talk to the mother to take the baby and keep the
Counsel
baby
her
with
to
her.
keep the baby with her.
Yes.
Okay. What are the compulsions that make a mother give up her child?
I think there are two. One is the stigma attached to being an unwed mother, which completely nullifies her chances of getting married again in the normal course of events. And the second is economic too. Even if she chose to keep her baby, how would she deal with caring for the baby, caring for herself, because she would most likely be on her own. And I think those are the two main reasons, yeah.
But when you say economic, that means only the women of that class only have unwanted babies?
Well,
I mean, not
actually,
unwed babies.
I think it cuts across. So I said two reasons. One is the stigma attached.
So if they are from the upper middle class, it's
again,
because of the stigma
attached.
they come in.
And then again, keep in mind, not only unmarried women relinquish their children. Married couples who have a third daughter or a fourth daughter also relinquish their little girls.
Oh my God!
Yeah. So I think we have to come a long way yet, where we understand that our daughters and our sons are so valuable to us, really, to us as people, to us as parents, and to us as a society. So many people relinquish their younger daughters as well. God. Then again, there's a child who has some kind of a
handicap
or a disability or a disfigurement, and those children are given up. That cuts across all societal levels, and where that's considered to be a stigma, and that is perhaps the most vulnerable of all the children that are relinquished or abandoned,
Laxmi,
because nobody wants them.
Yeah, definitely. Only people who are abroad would want they adopt those kids. Here, I have never met anybody who would want to adopt a deformed child.
Okay, but I think Aloma begs to differ from that. At this
of
point,
course, in our organization, we came across couples who really wanted sharp features, a fair-skinned baby, and a blue-eyed baby.
So they come and shop around like you buy a Barbie doll or something.
It used to happen, but then after counseling, of course, they changed their views about all these.
I'd like to, at this point, because we were talking about parents who are not willing to adopt not fully able children or whatever, and Aloma gave me a very shy smile because recently her adopted child, her own child now, was on this fabulous show of Amir Khan, Satyameva Jayate. Would you like to share that yourself, Aloma?
Actually, the whole program at that time was on disabilities, and the fact that we as a society do not recognize children who are differently able to children who might be perceived as being different are as valuable and as part of our society as any other person, and the dignity that they deserve is our duty. It's our duty to give them the dignity that they and the opportunities that they deserve. And focusing on, and projecting our daughter there was the fact that she is her own person, she is her own self, and she actually gives two bent pins about what anybody thinks about her.
Okay.
And she says, I am me, and if they have something to say about me which is negative, it's their problem, it's not our problem.
Tell us more about it for those who haven't seen the show.
And
how did she come into your life?
It was a miracle, I think, and I always believe that families are made in heaven, not on earth. And, God plans our families, and He sent it to us when we were that little bit older, when our other children had already finished school. And
how old was she when she came? What's her name?
Her name is Nisha.
Nisha came into your life.
She came into our lives when she was just a month old. She came to us in care to begin with, and then wormed herself into our hearts and just stuck in there. She stayed in there.
Okay.
And I think the important thing is when a child has a severe genetic condition, in the very first few days you look after the condition, and after that you look after the child. And then you don't even see the condition anymore. You just see a child who needs you, and who
And you knew that the child had this condition.
Oh yes, of course. It's very severe at birth. And it's not that she needed us alone. I think somewhere along the line you understand and you realize that you need the child too.
You needed the child.
You need each other, yeah. Well, what else can I say? Nisha is now
What is the kind of problem
She
that
has
the
a
child
genetic
had?
condition which is usually caused by consanguine marriages.
Really?
Where and which are quite common in our country actually, especially in the south, where you marry your uncle, you marry your first cousin, and she has a
And
genetic
some
condition.
communities also, isn't
In
it,
some
Aloma?
communities, she has.
They all are very inside their own community. They
so
have
she has
to
a
get
genetic
married.
condition, and where it's actually a skin condition, and because of the skin condition, she's also visually impaired.
Okay.
She's disfigured to look at, but that's about where her disfigurement or where her condition ends. The rest of her is absolutely, she's the most perceptive young woman I've ever come across.
But when you went and looked for wanting to adopt a
I didn't
child,
look for her, she looked for
you
us.
didn't look
I
for
think.
her. But when you saw her,
Yeah.
what was it that made you adopt her? When
Like
you
I
know
said,
her
at first we
condition.
looked after the condition. She
Okay,
came to
so
us
you
in
wanted
care
to
initially,
basically see that, let me help her with her condition.
And then of course you look at the child. Yeah.
Yes, naturally.
It's very hard. It's very hard to say why, for what reason. I don't think we can define that at all.
Definitely
Yeah,
not.
it's very hard to define.
And how old is she now?
Oh gosh, she's a young lady. She's 13.
Okay. Terrible 13s. And what was your experience in raising her? Because you already have 5 children. What was their reaction to her?
Well,
How do they all see? You're accepting her as one thing. The entire family, your own biological children, and then the...
other sisters. Yeah.
Yes. So how
Actually,
does it happen?
we talked about it with them, and they unanimously said, "Of course, mom, she has to be our mom and dad. She's going to be our sister." Today, they love her to bits. Today, there's a little. What shall I say? A little union of all
Children against parents.
5 children and that one last sister against their mom and dad. But it's a nice union, and she's their sister, just like any other child would have been their sister. She's their sister, and she now has a niece, 2 nieces, and a nephew, and she's
This is from your sons?
no daughters.
Daughters,
Yeah.
okay.
And yeah, she's just their sister. Yeah. And how was it bringing her up? The first few months were rather challenging, and then we fell into the routine, and then it's just part of our lives. It's no big deal at all.
It doesn't have any medical
She's
solace or something?
She does. She's on medication. She's on treatment.
Okay.
She's on maintenance treatment every day. But that's part of her life, part of our life, and it's just into the routine of
you
our
just
everyday.
accepted it
and it's there. It just happens. It's no big deal. Yeah, it's no big deal. Yeah, at all.
You were just saying, Laxmi, about how parents look for only certain colored skin, certain
Yes.
about eyes, color of eyes and things like that.
Yes.
Why would a mother who had a child with all these plus points, why would a mother abandon her?
Well, it could
I'm
be.
saying her because, am I right when you say there are more girls for adoption than boys?
Yes.
We'll talk about that, but I'll ask Laxmi to tell me
Yeah,
about
there are
this.
much more girls available for adoption.
Uh-huh.
And of course, the parents, they would want a beautiful child for themselves. So as they grow up, they want a beautiful daughter. So that was the fact behind. And we had a tough time counseling a couple of parents.
Okay.
That, they were really very particular about the eyes, the nose, and the color of the hair. And
Okay.
so we really had a tough time. But later on, we had to talk to them, and then, of course, everything was set right there. But initially, they came with a mental block that
So
they
it's
must
easier
have.
to get families for children who are cutie, dimple skin, dimple cheeks.
Yes.
Okay. Isn't it sad that parents who want children also want particular kind of children?
Yes.
But to be fair, there are lots of parents today who will just say, "We want a child. Just give us a healthy child."
Healthy
they're-
child. Okay,
and
even there
which-
is conditions
which I
apply,
can
right?
respect. Many people, they say very categorically that they want a healthy child, and you give them a healthy child and they're happy.
Okay.
Today, the young people are much more accepting, much
Accepting,
more
yes, that's
understanding,
right.
and they're much more realistic. And they say, "We want a child. We don't want a trophy." And I tell them during our counseling, "Do you want a child or do you want a trophy? If you want a trophy, you'll have to go somewhere else. If you want a child, yes, we can help you." And to be fair, there are lots of people who are very fussy about the child that they want, but there are many young couples who are educated, who are young, and I must say my hat goes up to them, because they are who they are, and they'll take a child that's given to them.
Lakshmi, you were talking about how foreigners go for such kids. Why is there a trend amongst foreigners to come and adopt kids who have little challenges?
Well, in India, when a lady gives birth to a deformed child,
Yeah.
there is a big, they keep her away from the family. They said you have given birth to a deformed child, and things like that are still happening. Whereas we don't see it in the Western countries. They are much more broad-minded.
Okay.
And of course, there are people here who I have come across people who really want to adopt such children. But I think now that times are changing. It never used to be the same before. People were really wanting, so specifications were made as to what kind of child they would want to adopt.
But now they are more flexible, is it?
Yes, yes.
Why are boys not available for adoption? Why they are not abandoned, is it?
Actually, there are fewer boys and more girls.
Yeah, why
But
so?
surprisingly, in the southern states of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, most people who come to adopt ask for a baby girl. And if you ask me why, I can't tell you why, but I'm assuming that the first reason is that they're more easily available, they think. Number two, they believe that girls are easier to raise than boys are. But in the northern part of the country, it's boys rather than girls. But there are more girls than boys. That is very true. Now, why that happens? Well, it's a well-known reason.
And what's the ratio? Roughly, what's the ratio?
8 to 10. For every out of 10 children, there would be 8 girls against 2 boys, give or take. Yeah,
Really?
it's about that. Yeah.
And do they belong to a particular community?
No,
these
that's hard
kids?
to say. It
That's
cuts
hard.
across. That's
But when
hard to say.
when the CWC talks to the mother, whoever is giving up the child, surely they will know what community the
Of course
child
they will.
comes from.
But you see, when a child is relinquished, when a child is abandoned, the child doesn't belong to any community or religion. The child just
It's
belongs to
the
himself.
child.
Yeah,
Okay.
just himself.
So whoever adopts can raise the child according to their own.
Absolutely. I think we as a society give the child a community. We give the child a religion. But when a child comes into the agency, the child is just a child.
Okay.
He's his own person.
And people who adopt don't even check out those things.
Or they
right?
might ask and we don't tell them.
All right.
Because we don't know.
It's never
and we
disclosed
don't care.
anytime.
We don't even care what the child is. Like even if someone says, I don't want a child of this community, if I don't want a child of that religion, we say, look, we can't help. If the child is older, of course, we can't help, but the child has a name or the child knows. But if it's an infant, we don't even keep tag of what the mother was.
So what happens to the older ones? Who
The
can?
o- the-
You said after
Yeah.
3. That up to 3, a child will know
Yeah.
where it comes from.
Absolutely. And the child has a name.
Yes.
And the name is indicative of
Of
where
what
the
community it
community the
belongs
child
to.
came from originally. Yes, and then there are some people who will say, we do not wish to have a child of this particular community. We respect that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll have to wait for somebody from that community.
And there
to
are lots
come.
of parents who are absolutely willing to take a child. They don't care what community or what religion the child belonged to originally.
But the child will adopt itself because at 3, kids are pretty adult in their
Actually,
thinking.
by
don't
the
you
time
think so?
it's a little difficult after the age of 5. But within 3, children just want to be loved.
That's
They just
it?
want a family. Yeah.
Okay.
After that, they begin to remember a lot. Even then, 3 to 5 again is not that bad. After 5, they carry a bit of baggage with them. Certainly.
Have you, Laxmi or Aloma, have you had experiences with parents who have adopted children above 5?
Oh yes.
Yes.
Yes. And what is the reaction of the child?
The child.
We gave an adoption an 8-year-old
Oh,
to a
okay.
couple.
Uh-huh.
They were in India, but now they are in the US. They took her and they came back and adopted a baby boy here. And the family is complete now, and they are very happy.
Okay.
And we have placed we had placed a 5-year-old with a single mother, and he's doing fine. He's a 20-year-old boy now,
Okay.
very well, very close to the mother, and he's in his college.
Okay. Which is the next thing I want to ask you is, for single parents, is it easy to adopt? I mean, a single woman or a single man. Is it easy to
Well, let
adopt?
me put it this way. Today, it takes long for a couple to adopt a child. So
Okay.
for a single mother, it takes that much longer.
Longer. Single father?
Single father, we have placed a couple of children with single fathers, but they're few and far between.
Do you give a girl to
No.
a single father?
That's not me.
No, when I say an
Kara
agency,
states that
according to the
you
law,
you may not give a girl to a single father.
is there a law?
It's not a law, it's a Kara guideline.
What is Kara? It is.
Central Adoption Resource Authority in Delhi in the Ministry of Women and Child Development.
Okay, so it's all controlled by the government of
That
India.
is correct. Yeah.
Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?
No comment.
Very politically answered. Well,
let me put it this way.
Okay.
I'm just joking. According to the Hague Convention, and we are members of the Hague Convention and signatories of the Hague Convention.
Okay.
We have to have a central authority. Every country that signs the Hague Convention in this regard, with regard to children, has to have a central authority which overrules or rules over the whole adoption process in the country. So that is what CARA does.
Okay. In fact, I think it is a good thing. I
It
would
is good.
say,
It is
isn't
good,
it?
actually. You need a regulating authority.
Yes. There's accountability,
Yeah.
and like otherwise, you say kids can be taken for all the
It's
wrong
like what happened in
reasons.
some Southeast Asian countries where
Uh-huh.
anything and everything went.
Okay.
But it's good to have a regulating authority and a monitoring authority if it works. Yeah, it does. I mean, we have to have one, and that's CARA is that authority. I used to be chairperson of CARA at one time.
Okay.
That's why I can joke about it.
Yeah. No, not apart from that. For everything, there's a good side, there's flip side, whatever it is.
Oh, yes.
But I'm sure the intention is to protect the interest of the child.
Absolutely. That's what CARA issues guidelines to that effect from time to time. But just to come back to one little point that Laxmi made about older children, I think when children over 5 are adopted, a very important aspect of this adoption is that the parents must be counseled in a lengthy kind of way on what it means to adopt an older child. That the child, what may be the initial responses of a child, the child doesn't attach immediately.
Yeah.
And parents
Sometimes it may be hostile too.
No, and parents must be prepared
Okay.
for a few problematic months or a year or so after they adopt an older child. But they have to be taught how to deal with it. Then the child again has to go through a certain amount of counseling, a certain amount of understanding what it means to go to a family, keeping in mind that the child has been through such a traumatic period of time.
Yeah.
Rejection is the most terrible thing that can happen to anybody.
Oh, yes.
And the child remembers and the child understands. So that's very important for older child adoption.
Lakshmi, do you think these kids who have been adopted, do they know about it? Do parents tell them?
Of course, the children who have been adopted from our agency do know that they are adopted kids.
Okay.
Because the first thing we counsel the parent or the parents is to tell the child that they are adoptive children.
How old was your daughter when you told her?
She was 3.
What did you tell her?
Well, it was my husband's job to tell her.
That's really passing the
Because
buck.
I'm an emotional person
Okay.
by nature.
Uh-huh.
So, it was a long process. Every time, of course, she's a very inquisitive girl. So she kept on asking me, why is my eyes black and yours is brown?
Okay.
And all sorts of questions, Sometimes I used to get emotional, so I used to just back up and, it was my
Tell your
husband.
husband, please tell her.
Yeah, but
So
now, I mean,
what did you tell her?
well,
When you told her, what was it that you told her?
Well, we told her that she is the God gave her
Okay.
to us,
Uh-huh.
and that we are very happy with her, and that's it. And it is a wonderful experience we have had with her, and she took it in a very nice way. Unlike some of them have some initial hitches when the parents tell them. Some of them go into a little bit of
Withdrawal kind
of
Okay.
thing, and but we, touch wood, we didn't have any such problems. Of course, she was curious to know about her birth mother, and
Interesting. You all say birth mother. No kid is asking about the birth father.
Surprisingly, no.
Isn't it?
Hardly ever.
So the mother's role is more important for
Yes.
even an abandoned child.
Best. Yeah.
Okay. Doesn't even ask about the father. What's been your experience, Aloma, with these kids? How have you told them?
Well,
like, these are my biological children. You didn't come.
Actually, the baseline is that you give biology and adoption the same value. And if you give both the same value in your own mind and in your own heart, then you talk about it in the most natural way
Naturally.
that you both are spoken of naturally. And that's what we really did. My husband and I, we always talked about both things as normally, because to us it was both were equally of the same value, if you like to call it, and in our lives. And if you're worried about being adopted, then you whisper about it and you keep it a secret. But if you're not worried about it, and if you give it the dignity it deserves, same as biology, you talk about it. So we always spoke about it when you came home, when so-and-so was born, when you came home. So the child begins to understand that there is some kind of a difference, but it doesn't matter. The difference doesn't matter. Because keep in mind that children only really understand what adoption really is when they understand what reproduction is.
Okay.
Yeah. And until then, you're kind of programming them up to that point when they understand, when they say, Eureka, oh, this is what is what my mom was telling me about all of a sudden. But they do understand that there is a difference, and they accept it. Keeping in mind that when they're little, whatever they believe whatever you tell them. As they grow up, they sort of curl their lips at whatever you tell them. So it's a good thing that a child is raised understanding or knowing that he or she is adopted, and that talk to them about where they came from. Don't tell them too much at any time, because the children will ask questions.
Correct.
It's like, oh, I didn't come from your tummy, then where did I come from?
Okay.
Someone else's tummy. That's enough.
So who's that someone?
They'll come back after 2 weeks and ask you whose tummy. They'll say, I don't know. So they don't really want all the detail. They just want an initial question to be answered.
Okay.
But always keep the door open. If your child wants to ask questions, want to talk to you, let them do so. Be comfortable with it.
Okay.
That's important.
Be comfortable with it. Okay.
Yeah. Many moms are not comfortable with it.
That's it. Yeah.
But
talking about comfort, Laxmi, when your daughter was growing up, and you're part of an extended family, and
Yes.
okay, sometimes kids can be very cruel to each other. Other children.
Other children, yeah.
Isn't it?
Yes.
So probably their parents would have said, oh, don't you know she's adopted? And then they'll ask, okay, what it is. And so now, do they come and tease these children and say, oh, I know you're not...
No, we haven't come across any such, any situation like that. Because from day one, when we brought her into our lives, we had told everybody in the extended family that this is what we're going to do. And everybody was very happy for us. And then she was welcomed, and now she's part of the family.
Naturally, when she's grown
up. We don't call her our adopted child anymore. She's our own. Own blood and flesh.
No, so, once they walk into your
Yes,
home,
it makes...
they walk into your heart. And
that's right.
And even the law recognizes, right?
Absolutely. Actually, when there are many children who do face challenges, who do face situations when people say something, or a child on the playground might say something, or even an extended relative might say something. And my take on this to families when we counsel is that you can't change the world, but you can equip your child to deal with the world.
Okay.
And if you've given your child that confidence in who he is, that confidence, look, I'm adopted, that's who I am, and I'm proud of it, and my parents are proud of it, that's important. My parents are proud of it, it's part of our lives, then the child is able to deal with it quite easily. I won't say easily, the child is able to deal with it.
So you have to empower your child.
You have to empower your child. You can't change the world. You cannot change the world, but you can empower your child to deal with it.
At any point, do they express their curiosity to know who was my biological parent?
Some children do. Some children do.
So how does one handle that?
I think you have to talk to them normally and say, look, I don't know, but if we go to the agency, if they can help us, maybe they can tell you something. And most often there's nothing to tell them, because there are really no such
records, such records.
There are records, but the records are not
disclosed.
Not in such detail.
Okay. Yeah. It's just that abandoned on so and so date, that's it.
No, today children who are abandoned, there are a lot more detail. There's a lot more detail. In today, yes, there is a lot more detail. Is it
good?
Well, it's hard to say. You see, keeping in mind what our society is like. I mean, if a woman comes and relinquishes a child to you, she's 17 years old, she's unmarried, she doesn't want the world to know who she is. And she doesn't want a child walking into her life 24 years from now, when she's already married to somebody else. She comes from a traditional conservative background. She already has a husband and 3 children, and a mother-in-law and a father-in-law in the background. Imagine if a 20 or 21-year-old walks in and says, I'm your daughter. What would it do to her life?
So many lives are affected because of that.
I think there's a bigger picture to take note of.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when the person has given up the child, why let the dead past bury itself?
Also, it's very possible that the women have to keep all of their identity on paper. They will just dump the child somewhere.
Yes.
That's very possible.
Correct.
I mean, most mothers are very protective about their children.
Yeah, that's
And the very fact that a woman chooses to identify herself and give a baby to an agency where they're going to ask her 1,000,000 questions means that she does care for the child. Let's not for a moment think that the woman who relinquishes a child doesn't care.
Of course.
She does care, and like I tell my own child, you must thank your mother and pray for your mother for giving you to somebody who could take care of you when she couldn't. It was a brave and a courageous thing to do. We shouldn't sort of diss them and say that, they were uncaring people.
So even the adopted children shouldn't feel that
absolutely
I was dumped by my mother.
They never
because
really dumped.
She didn't love. No, it is because she had
could not take care of them.
Yes,
and for whatever reason,
situations which she had no control over.
Social, economic, whatever. Yeah.
The famous story of Kunti abandoning her child, though there was nothing for her to be ashamed of or whatever it is. Still. And it still goes on, that same Kunti story.
And at least perhaps sometimes the word abandon is not the right word.
Yeah, giving up.
You give your child to someone who can't take it. It's a very brave thing to do.
But tell me, Aloma, suppose she comes and gives your child, because at that time she feels, okay, I can't. There'll come a time, some change in her fortunes and things like that. Does she come back to the agency and say, now I want to get my child
They never
back?
come back. No, because I think it's also a state of mind at the time when they give up the child. They do understand that it's irrevocable. And you have to think again of the bigger picture. The child is now with her family. That's her family. That's her family. It's hard to say what they go through because I've never been in that situation, so I don't know.
You don't know,
But perhaps they think of the child on her birthday. But I think sometimes we romanticize the fact that motherhood and giving birth is, everybody thinks that giving birth is the most beautiful experience. To my mind, it's not.
Yeah.
And
it just happens sometimes.
Yeah, and we romanticize things too much, and think that a woman. So I think it's hard to say what they go through, what they don't go through. It's hard.
Would you want to add anything to that, Laxmi?
Anyway, when the mother relinquishes a child, she's given a period of 3 months.
To reconsider.
2 months. Yes, to reconsider.
Okay.
So she can come back within that period if she wants to get back the child. And after that, it's very difficult.
That is when you know who the mother is. Sometimes the mother just walks away.
Then
there is
they
no...
never. See, a woman who walks away never comes back also.
Yes, naturally.
Mostly people don't come back. Most of the cases, they never come back for the child.
Now I want to ask you, what are the procedures to adopt a child?
Okay, the process is, first of all, you've got to make your decision. This is what I want to do. And then they go to an agency or they come to the ACA or wherever. And there's a lot of documentation that is required. So initially, a couple will come and they will talk with the agency. They will talk with the social worker and say what they want to do. But the agency also has to discern whether this couple is really motivated in the right kind of way to adopt a child. So they will talk to them and then they will register them and then they will ask them to get their documents. And then when they get their documents...
What kind of documents?
Oh, it's a whole list of them, right? From a marriage certificate to income certificates to health documents.
Or even documents from the doctor to say that you can't conceive or something?
No, that's not true. You do not have to be childless to be able to adopt a child.
Okay, so you can say
you can be married,
perfectly okay
unmarried,
to be able
healthy,
to? Okay.
reasonably healthy. You have to have a reasonable income to offer the child reasonable opportunities in life, and documentation documentation to uphold what you're saying you are.
True,
it's true.
Do you also have to show okay, I have this much of money and I can...
You have to show that you have a you're reasonably stable.
Yeah,
that's it. Because you don't want to put the child back from where he came. You want to give the child reasonable, ordinary middle class opportunities.
Okay, good education, good food.
A reasonable home, access to reasonable facilities. So once that is done and a home visit is done and the couple has had a reasonable amount of counseling, then and the home study is complete, then they put on a wait list. Then once a couple says, look, we want a girl, perhaps, or they say we want a boy. Then when a child is identified for them, they're informed. Then they come and see the child. And then they can say A or nay in principle.
Okay.
Then they're allowed to peruse all the documentation, of the child. And then they can take the child independently for a medical exam.
Okay.
And they're always encouraged to do so.
So mostly this documentation pertains to the health of the child.
Correct.
Not because of its background and all.
No,
nothing.
Well, whatever background is known, they might take. It's never identifying background. It's always non-identifying background. And then once that happens, if they say yes, then they're given the child in pre-adoptive foster care. Okay. They sign a document because the quicker a child goes home to its family, the better it is. And until the legalization is complete. And then the agency has a lawyer who attends to all the legal. In a nutshell, that's the process.
That's it.
Yes.
Okay. It seems quite above board.
Oh yes, it is. Like I said, the checks and balances and the processes are not bad at all. Okay. It's only the time frames that are too long.
Does money change hands with all this?
It should not, and it must not. See, the CARA has said that a couple they have laid down what a couple can pay. Okay, for an in-country adoption, it's 40,000 with everything done.
So this
legal
is above board. Yes. This is the kind of money we charge for all the procedures.
And no agency is allowed to take a donation.
Okay.
Yeah. And And this 40,000 covers the legal expenses, the maintenance, medical, everything.
Okay.
It covers everything.
And it goes to the agency.
It goes to the agency, and it has to be receipted. And so that's it. But if people are taking money, and whenever if a couple comes to us and then goes to another agency, we give it to them in writing that these are the charges that are applicable and nothing else. We tell them in writing. We make them sign it to make sure that they know what they're doing.
Okay.
And do agencies take money? Do some agencies take money? I do believe they do. In terms of donations, which they shouldn't. CARA does not permit it. CARA does not permit it.
But how do they sustain themselves then? If there's no donation taken, and if this money which is being given is to cover all the out-of-pocket expenses.
Keeping children is actually your job in childcare. Adoption is not your job. Childcare is your job.
Okay.
And if you cannot afford a childcare institution which you have started,
then you shouldn't start.
Then you shouldn't start it. Yeah.
Okay.
And adoption is secondary to childcare. And I believe that when so much of money changes hands, then you're converting the child into a commodity. And then if the child is a commodity,
you're trading the child.
Then you've got to procure your commodity, and therein lies all the illegal stuff that goes on.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're coming to that part of it. What are the murky things about this?
So there are some agencies have been terribly. Karnataka, I must add here, has been very good.
Okay.
Because everybody agrees to disagree or disagrees to agree. We are all one unit, and we're also self-monitoring, and we've had a very good relationship with the state government, and so everything in Karnataka has been pretty much above board.
That sounds good
and
to hear.
I think as part of the adoption scene, I'm really very, very proud to say that. And but there have been other places where a lot of
underhand things
have happened. Yeah. And I think the root of all evil, as the famous song goes, is money. Yeah. And the child becomes, a pawn in this whole issue. Yeah.
Laxmi, you said you stopped doing this a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Why did you do that?
We stopped this activity in the year 2008 because that year we didn't have any children coming into the organization. But for 2 house mothers living there, the whole year they were there.
Doing nothing?
Doing nothing, but of course we started a creche for the,
working women.
The working women there in the village. And of course it was a small time creche, until 12:30. And we gave them some milk and buns, and that was then the parents, the women, asked us to start a school because we had the infrastructure.
Okay.
So that is when we slowly started the school, and it is now a school which has up to 6th standard. And with 200 children studying. They are all underprivileged kids.
So you wound up the adoption thing because you didn't get any children?
completely off the adoption program now.
Because you didn't get any children?
No, absolutely. Not even a single baby came to us in the year 2008.
What do you say to that, Aloma? Why do you think this happened?
I'm aware of what happened at that time. At that time, they didn't get any children. And that's why fewer children started. It started being fewer children. Am I right? Yeah, and they were more in the outskirts of Bangalore, and they got no children that one year. But even today, the agencies get very few children into their homes.
What is the reason for this supply stop?
All the children go to the government home, and from the government home, they are redistributed in a manner of speaking to the agencies.
Okay, so there is one common pool where all these kids which have been abandoned and all. It is interesting to know what are the dynamics that are involved in adoption and how there is a central regulating authority, which is a good news indeed, to make sure there's no hanky-panky about all this, because otherwise it can be very, very devastating for a child to be adopted by so-called loving parents and being used as a housemaid or something like that. I think there have been some cases before. But by and large, both Aloma and Laxmi say that it's a very clean, fairly checks and balances, everything in place. It's a fairly clean thing that's happening. And they are particularly appreciative of Karnataka, where it's going pretty well. It feels good to know that, though in some other places it's not so good. So we are coming back to it, Aloma and Laxmi, to find out the procedures. What about a couple, an Indian couple? Is it an Indian couple easier to get a child in adoption or a foreign couple? What is the difference between the two?
It's much. All priority goes to an Indian couple living in India.
Indian couple living in India.
Then to an Indian couple living in another country temporarily.
Okay.
then to an Indian couple then to a foreign couple of Indian origin with an OCI, and last to a foreign couple, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So there's certainly, and there is a quota. Every agency has to first give that many children to Indian families before they can start inter-country adoption.
Is there a little bit of hanky-panky there in that?
I don't understand. In what way?
See, is it like you're standing in a queue, you go by the queue, or somebody jumps the queue?
See, you can't really go in a queue. I mean, if you want a girl, I can't say, no, you this part of the queue, you can only get siblings. I can't do that. So, so it's hard to keep to a queue, but it's very difficult. Everybody's requirement is different. Some want a girl, some want a 2-year-old, some want an infant. So you can't stand in a queue. Yeah. Right, to the best extent possible, you find a child for that family. You assign a child. But every agency has to give first preference to Indian families living in India.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
and
about
that is checked.
Indian families living abroad?
That too. That's second.
That's number 2.
That's number 2. Then Indian families who have foreign nationality but of Indian origin. Like Americans, Indian Americans.
Okay.
Yeah, but they have to have an OCI to get a preference. If you don't have an OCI, you're just like any other foreign family.
Okay. And last is foreign.
The foreigners.
But you do hear a lot about, like Laxmi herself talked about foreigners adopting even the, not too able children.
This is a misconception in today's adoption scene, that foreigners, most of the foreign agencies are pulling out of India because they don't get children.
Oh, I see. Even they are.
And most of the children who go to foreign couples are children with special needs. And children with special needs, included in the list of children with special needs, are older children. Usually older children over the age of 7 or 8, sibling groups, 2 brothers or 3 sisters or whatever, and children with serious medical conditions and genetic abnormalities, or I know children who have special needs. So,
what makes these people from abroad come in? Is it their magnanimity? Is it because they feel
I don't think you have to be magnanimous to adopt a child with special needs. I think you have to have a need within yourself also.
Okay.
And what makes them do it? They usually say beforehand, we will consider a child with special needs.
Okay.
And
it's a conscious decision they make.
It's definitely a decision.
Okay.
And usually it's a couple who is educated in this area, or who already have a child with a similar condition, or who have access to medical facilities, and it's just a couple who wants to do it. And why you want to do it, you can't define it again. Like I say, you're prepared to do it, you can't define why.
See, God makes certain people to do certain things.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think, within my own family, we all do different things in different ways, and you just get different gifts, if you like, yeah.
It is a totally out of the way question, Aloma. You say you have 6 kids, but all of them living with you right now? Your daughters are all married.
Only one child is left at home now.
Oh, otherwise I was just going to ask you, who cooks for all of them?
Oh, I did. When they were 5, we had 5 at one time all at home.
Okay.
We had 5 at home. We had 5 children and 2,000 friends who used to come and go for lunch and dinner.
All their friends.
It was like Grand Central Station, and we totally enjoyed it.
Okay.
But I don't miss it anymore. I'm so happy it's over. And like someone asked me, she said, don't you suffer from the empty nest syndrome? I said, no, I don't. I love my children to come, and then I love them to go again. Okay. Yeah, I get my life back.
But your Nisha is still with you.
That I love.
Okay. Does she feel lonely because all of them
Actually, I do believe she does get lonely. Absolutely. Yeah, right. And being, with older people around, we live in a bungalow, so there are no children, not like in an apartment with children all around.
Exactly.
But yes, she reads a lot. She reads a lot. She's on the telephone a bit.
A bit?
Yes.
That's quite a bit,
she's
I'm
got her
sure.
school friend. She's in school the whole day, so she's okay.
She goes to regular school?
She goes to regular school. She goes to an international school, yes.
Okay. Which one is this?
Trio World School.
Okay.
And here I must add that they've done wonders for her.
Okay.
She even took part in a fashion show. They put her into a fashion show.
Really?
And you could have knocked me down with a feather when my daughter came out with one hand in her right hip. With
the tumka, whatever they call it.
And so, I was amazed that they put her to a fashion show, and she was prepared to put herself out there.
Okay.
And she could only do that if the school had given her that confidence and that courage to do it. Well, I'm not even going to say courage, just confidence, yes.
What does she plan to do with her life?
But someone asked her that, yes, and she said, don't you think I'm still too young to decide that? Just yesterday someone asked her
she knows
that.
that.
Yes, she knows how much. She has her own. She has a mind of her own. Actually, an interesting thing here is that when one of my daughters had her first baby, she looked at the baby, she picked up the baby and said, Mom, my first biological connection. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, no, the first biological connection that she knows.
That she knows of. Absolutely,
That's
that
right.
she knows of.
Absolutely.
She wouldn't have been there without a biological.
She said, my first, no, she did say the first biological connection that I know of.
that
yeah.
you know of. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting.
I want to ask you, when parents have their own kid, now there was this lady who didn't have children for 16 years. She adopted a child. Immediately she got her own child. So what happens in such cases?
Well, they are very happy. I mean, it's not that
They look upon it as a good omen?
good omen. Yes, yes.
Because of them.
we have had one incident in our agency. They adopted a baby girl from us, a couple from Bangalore, but now they're placed in Canada. And later on, they had their own biological daughter. But I mean, it's a lovely family now.
It's just
Two
another
girls,
baby.
It's
yeah.
another
It's
baby.
a second
That's
baby.
all.
Yeah.
It's a second baby.
In fact, they look upon it as a good omen, I believe.
I don't know if it's an omen or just a second child. Oh well. Well, I know a couple who was in the process of adoption when she was pregnant after a great many years, and she said to me, "What do I do now?" I said, "What do you do? Nothing." I said, "Just have two babibies very close together, and you're in big trouble." Two babies so
It's
close
like
together,
twins.
yeah, like twins. Yeah,
And you're
Yeah,
getting the
delighted,
other one without
delighted,
any labor pains
Yeah,
and all
absolutely.
that. Okay. Now, yesterday a lady was telling me about, I'll go to the next stage of this adoption thing. She was telling me about a person who works in her office who is slight handicap. His wife also has a certain handicap, but they've adopted a child. How does this work?
Why not? A handicap should not disqualify you from adopting
Not for
a child.
disqualification.
It depends on the degree of severity of the handicap.
Okay. So are they considered when you home study and things like that? Such cases are considered all right
Absolutely.
for
We would
adoption?
consider a couple with a handicap if they were able to care for the child.
Caring is more important.
If they're severely paralyzed, I
it's
wouldn't offer
yeah,
them a child.
sure.
If they were both blind and deaf, I wouldn't give them a child. But if they could take care of a child, given that they're handicapped, I mean, we all have handicaps of our own, for heaven's sake. But if they could take care of the child, it's
So
not
if
a
one of them
disqualification.
has something which can supplement the handicap,
Absolutely,
then they
absolutely.
don't
yes,
mind.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we have placed children with parents who have one or two if they have some kind of a handicap. In fact, we've also placed a child where one parent is blind and the other parent is sighted and
Okay.
absolutely fine, and they're doing very well. Yeah. Well, you take blind children. Why can't you have a blind mother or a blind father?
No, there it happens because it happens, but here it happens out of choice.
But here, the family can take care of the child without too much of trouble, too much of difficulty. They cannot take the child. Yeah, we would place a child with them.
Laxmi, do you know of any such incidents when you
we
were
haven't had any such this thing in our agency.
Okay.
But of course, we had a blind mother who relinquished a baby. That's all. That's
Okay,
it.
that's the other way
That's
around.
all the baby.
That's the other way around. Yeah.
I heard of an agency in some other state which was running pretty well, but was in serious trouble subsequently, and they had to close down. What did they do wrong?
I don't know which one you're talking about.
I really don't know the name. Honestly, I don't. But it was somebody whom I know who was part of it, and she took me around
The usual reason why Kara or the government would close down an agency, I don't know which agency you're talking about, but the usual reason would be the first thing is that there was some hanky-panky going on in terms
So what
of
kind of hanky-panky?
procurement of children. That's the usual reason that they get children.
Oh, somebody would have sold them a child or
Well,
something?
not just, but whatever. They're not getting children the legal way. Number one. The second would be that they're taking exorbitant donations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the third would be that their agency is not being run properly. It may not conform to the minimum standards that are required. So those are the three usual reasons that an agency might lose its license.
And lack of getting kids.
Well, yeah, if there are no children available, yeah, but then the agency wouldn't be closed. They would close themselves. That's another thing.
Yes, correct. There's a different reason why they are closing.
They would close it themselves.
But I have heard a lot of friends of mine who live abroad, Indians but living there, finding it very difficult to adopt a child.
Because there are fewer children today. Even Indians living in India are finding it difficult to adopt a child. You're right. You're absolutely right.
So that's the reason. Now, what do you think about adopting a child from the family? Somebody in the family cannot afford to have, and you'll say, what do you think about
Well,
it?
it depends on the
Does it
family,
work
really.
out?
It depends on the family, but I do believe you would be looking over your shoulder all the time.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
thought.
And I think you don't have the complete freedom to parent the child as you would wish.
Lakshmi, what do you think about it?
I totally agree with Aloma. And there might be clashes in the family, So probably as the child grows, the birth mother would want, they will be in
Participate
touch
in the
every
life,
day.
yeah.
Yes, of course. So,
So, Lakshmi, did you find it difficult to find out?
well, my daughter married a man whom she fell in love
Oh,
with.
So did both
Good
mine.
for her.
So we didn't have any problems.
Even
So-
your daughters?
Both
Aloma?
mine, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I suppose that's a good alternative.
Yeah.
I think the best thing is for them to find their own partners and
That
be done
even
with
your
it.
biological children.
And in
by the
today's
way.
world,
that
that's what
anyway.
most of them do anyway.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's nothing to do with adoptive or
True. It-
it's
Yeah.
today's
And in
generation.
fact,
It's so
I
much
tell
better.
you, when my daughter got engaged, she's married a Kannadiga boy from here. And when she got engaged, his entire family came to our house for the engagement. His grandmother, who only spoke Kannada, said, "Oh, she looks just like the girl from the Titanic." Like the heroine from the Titanic.
wow.
And she said, "I love this girl. She was such a lovely lady." She sort of they embraced my daughter into their hearts, the whole family.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was nice.
Okay, that's good because they could have also resisted.
Of course they could have.
Number one on the religion point of view, and the second
different
thing.
community, she's adopted, everything, but they embraced her wholeheartedly.
So by and large, you have people with good heart out there.
Good heart and with open minds. That's what you need. Yeah, an open mind.
And now, if you say there are less and less kids available for adoption, what do parents who are in the wait list? What do they do? What's the alternative for them?
I don't know really.
They are really desperate.
And I
Yes.
think in time we will be looking to other countries, perhaps. Who knows? We won't be.
No, but if
country
they
that gives
had, they
children.
wouldn't come to India to adopt, isn't
Yeah,
it?
but then very few children here now. There are many more parents also. Before there would be 50 children in an organization, and there would be just 2 or 3 parents who adopted
Wanting.
a child.
But now
Today
there
it's
are
the other
50
way around.
parents
Yeah,
and
it's the other way
the other way
around.
around.
Yeah,
2
quite
children.
right. Yeah.
Okay. But if you go to a lot of these orphanages, there are lots of kids around there.
You see, many of them have parents or one
Yes,
parent.
yeah. And they don't give up children for adoption.
And that's another thing. In some agencies, in some organizations, they keep children. They look, quote unquote, look after them. They give them an education. They give them food. They give them something to sleep on, and they think they're doing their job.
But they're not.
To my mind, every child is deserving of a family.
Absolutely.
And even if you say that you create a family within an institution, you cannot create a true family within an institution. Even if you have house mothers. I know there are many people who are going to disagree with me, but I believe that every child is entitled to a family, if that's what's possible for that child. And agencies who have true orphans must offer their children up for adoption.
Yes.
But if they have one mother or a parent somewhere at the back in the background, certainly I understand that you look after that child for that parent who cannot
Because
look
there are a
after the
number
child.
of these orphanages which are running,
Yes.
they don't give for adoption.
Which is wrong. Who are you to decide whether the child should have a family or not?
So does Kara have a say in it to say?
The thing is, Kara doesn't have a direct say, but I think that state governments should have a direct say in that. The state government should say, if you have children who are free for adoption, technically free for adoption, they should be released.
That means
for
they
adoption.
shouldn't have biological parents.
That is correct.
Not grandparents, uncles, aunts and things.
See,
like
if you want to look after the child, take the child and look after the child.
Okay, don't leave them in an orphanage.
And don't deprive the child of the love and affection of a family, of a true family, if you can't give it.
And also the child will get better education, whatever, instead of institutionalizing the whole thing.
Absolutely.
So what does one do about that?
Well, our state government is in the process of regularizing all those agencies.
Really? Okay, that
Our
feels
state
good.
government is on the job.
Which means any child who is
Technically free for
Technically,
adoption
okay,
will be released
technically
for
or
adoption.
legally
Yeah. Will
ready
be
for
released
adoption,
That is
must be given in adoption. And this way both the child will benefit and
And there are
the
families waiting.
family is waiting.
absolutely.
Okay, before they get too old to adopt the child.
And before the child gets too old to be adopted.
To be adopted.
Both ways.
You know, it's so amazing that the proper fit is not happening,
Correct.
isn't it?
Correct.
Even like today, you have a lot of single women wanting to marry, single men wanting to marry, but they're not finding the partner here and she's not finding partner here. We've said a lot. We've covered every aspect of adoption. And whatever is left over now, we'll do it now at this point. So, Aloma, let's take it on from there, or Laxmi, whoever wants to go first, on anything about adoption. I was just asking about what about those parents who are childless and they can't get kids for adoption? What happens?
Well, they're still waiting and they're desperate and they come and cry to me even now, even though we have stopped the adoption process, program. There are couples coming and asking me about it because I'm helpless again. So it is just, they are still waiting.
Suppose you go to a government hospital, municipal hospital, where the mother gives birth to the child and she dies and there's nobody else claiming the child. Can the doctor give up the child?
No, that's totally illegal.
Okay.
The child has to, if a child is abandoned somewhere, they have to inform the police.
And it has to go to the child first.
An organization,
Transfer the child, yeah.
Okay, so
That's
it's
to
a
safeguard
warning.
the child, yeah.
It's also a warning for those who do things like this,
Absolutely.
not to adopt.
Absolutely.
It's illegal.
Totally illegal.
Okay, and the child, at later somebody comes to know about it,
yeah.
they can come and take the
Take
child
away. Absolutely.
Oh, that doesn't
Terrible,
sound good. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So a doctor finds a child on the labor table and the mother dies and there is no claimant for it. The doctor has to first report to the police.
And the hospital reports the police and then they transfer the child to an agency.
Okay, which has these...
Yeah, and which goes through the processes of releasing the child. Oh, yes. Even if you find a child on the street, you can't keep the child. It's illegal.
Okay.
And many people will think that if they find a child,
they
will go with the
find
child
us
to the
keepers.
agency. This is not like you found a pouch on the road or something like that. You found a child. And keep in mind that all children who are abandoned and relinquished are technically wards of the state.
Yes, of course.
They don't belong to anybody.
Now tell me, in the government also, they have government homes, right? And there are kids who are orphans. Why don't they give them up for adoption?
There is a government orphanage called Shishu Mandir.
Yes.
And that's the holding ground, so to speak, of all the children. All the children come in there and then are distributed to all the other agencies.
Okay.
There is a government adoption agency. There is.
And there are lots of kids there.
Oh, yes, but they go in adoption.
They'll go away.
Yeah. They go in adoption.
But there seem to be quite a number of them.
It depends which one you're talking about.
I'm talking about one in Mysore. I've seen one.
Mysore, I don't know which one you're talking about.
There's
one here next to Nimhans, which is...
It's a Bal home. It's a government home for girls.
But most often, these are homes where there is one parent, most often. Even though there are lots of children, they all have at least one parent.
And these girls have been, rescued from railway stations and bus stations and all that. And they're all here. Okay, there are about 75 of them there. And some of them are really small, they are 5 or 6 years old.
Oh, they're little.
Yeah. Because I used to go there, I used to go and volunteer there and try to teach them something.
That must be the juvenile home
No,
you're talking about?
No, it's not the juvenile home. It is a home for girls.
Little girls.
Okay.
And there are about 75 of them there. And particularly these 4 or 5 of them I saw, they're really small.
Little.
6 years old.
That's sad.
They could be given.
Absolutely.
And so badly kept, Aloma, all their nose running and some torn kind of clothes just hanging on their body like this. And everybody has a laid-back attitude there also.
I know, it's sad. It's very sad.
Isn't it?
Very
Instead
sad.
of that, if they give it in with all your rules and regulations, no, we'll keep... At least the child would be in a family.
Absolutely.
She would be given a
Absolutely
bath
right.
and given clothes to wear.
Most of all, she would be loved.
Yeah, that's
Most of
it.
all,
And
yeah.
here, the kid is just hanging around doing... And after that, I stopped going there because...
You feel so bad.
I just felt helpless. Okay, because it's a government-run home and I have no say in the matter. And after that, I said, hey, forget it. I can't change the world. I'm not God. Even God can't change the world the way it is. There's another alternative to adopting. Because now, as both Aloma and Laxmi are telling us that there is more of demand than supply, this alternative is surrogacy. I recently came to know about an organization called Tammuz, which is an Israel-based surrogacy donor agent, and they work with a hospital in Mumbai. I haven't heard a lot about them, but they have their own package prices and I think specialize with gay parents. Their number of staff, on-site or off-site cycles, their own IVF full-time team or an IVF team that only performs their cycles. surrogate housing, surrogate payment, profit margin, many other factors come into their costing. But you know what? You have to do your homework and check message boards, forums for feedback on your clinic. Be aware that some agencies post as infertility patients to promote themselves. So use your own judgment. And always make sure there are other successful parents you can speak with. All the good clinics will have references for you. On my recent trip to Mumbai, I was staying in a hotel. I was quite surprised to find quite a number of men and women with little carry baskets with babies, just 8-9-day-old babies in them, in the dining room area. And I was wondering, how do people come with such small babies on a vacation? But when I checked with the receptionist and asked them, how come you have such a big group of parents? They said, no, they have come to Thammuz because they've come for a surrogate baby. And all these babies have official passport and everything done. And it's all done by this agency and the hospital where the babies are born. Interesting. What about surrogate?
Actually, adoption and surrogacy are two parallel ways to parenthood. One is not worse or better. I'm not going to comment on which is better or which is worse. They're just two parallel roads to parenthood.
No, but surrogacy is more dangerous.
Surrogacy now has to be what shall I say, regulated.
How can you regulate the emotions of the mother?
No, you have to regulate surrogacy. Surrogacy can be regulated. For that matter, you can say, how can you regulate the emotions of a mother who gives up a child?
No, she gives up voluntarily and goes away. Here, a mother carries it full term, then she has the baby, and then she says, oh, no, but I want the baby. Then what happens?
It's done only with her consent. So,
and even if it's a consent, at the last minute, I think recently there was a case about some Japanese.
No, that's not what happened really. What happened with the Japanese case was that they said that the child is an Indian child. How can the child go out of the country? And the child would have to be adopted by the Japanese parents. There were all these little technical issues. Let's not go into that here because it's all technical. It wasn't really a question of emotions.
So there again, you have to do it legally, right?
So that is why it should be done legally, and there should be proper regulations for surrogacy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There have to be proper regulations. Just like there are for adoption, there should be regulations for surrogacy.
Is there some move making?
Yes. The government is doing that. Yeah.
And what do you think about the donor part of it, the wiki donor kind of thing? Laxmi, you want to say about it? And both of them don't want to say anything about it.
Yeah.
But I don't mind saying something about it. Like, it's not a bad idea, really. At least you can go and choose and say, hey, I want somebody with good looks, what you say right now, what parents ask
designer babies.
The designer babies. Yeah, I suppose it should be okay. I mean, if they come from good stock, somebody who's highly educated, comes from a good family or whatever it is, and the sperm is there, and all right, I'll choose what kind of a baby I want.
I don't know. I think to a great extent, babies, the environment is what makes a child person the person.
I agree with you.
When you say good stock to us, good stock means wealthy family, educated family.
No, not wealthy so much.
Okay,
I would say educated and good genes about health part of it.
Yeah. Health, again, to a great extent, is also because of nutrition or generations.
Sure, why not? Which means they are from a good Khata Pita Khandan, they say.
Yeah. I don't know. If I personally wouldn't be happy with that, because I think, God creates us in His own image and likeness. And therein is where buck stops. And, that's who you are. Then, for that matter, in that case, what makes my daughter less of a human being than somebody who came from that kind of quote-unquote stock? You see? And I beg to differ, because I think she's a wonderful human being, as great, as wonderful as anybody else.
What about cloning?
Oh, please, let's not go there. We're not goats or sheep. Yeah. And I certainly wouldn't want to see another one of me.
No, not one of you. It could be a combination of A, B, C.
No, I don't even want to see that. I like a surprise.
No, but is it possible? Is it being done?
I don't know. It's the best kept secret if it's being done, but not that I know of. No.
There was a cute little cartoon the other day, whereas the cock is strangling the hen because out of the chicken comes an elephant. I mean, out of the egg comes the elephant.
Oh, I love that.
And the hen is saying, I don't know how it happened.
Must have happened in the lab, yeah.
So that's a good one. I mean, in lighter vein, but
yeah. So there you go. Yeah. So, yeah. So I think I would like a child that like a child, whether it's through adoption, whether it's through the natural way or whatever. I would like my child to be who I am, a part of me and my husband, rather than cloned.
And the
or-
sanskars you give your child becomes a part of them anyway.
Absolutely,
Yes.
yeah.
Do you both agree that parvarish is more important than your parentage? Do you agree about that?
Sorry?
Parvarish, that is your bringing up.
Upbringing,
I think
yes.
it's-
Upbringing
of course.
is
I
more
would s-
important than your parentage. Do you think?
I would certainly agree with that. I think certain familial characteristics might come through, but those are characteristics that you deal with, and it's your upbringing and your environment
Which
that either makes or breaks it. Certainly, I mean, I have seen children who've come from alcoholic fathers who don't even have a drink, and that's
Okay.
because
Of course.
His father drank and his father before him was an alcoholic. So it's a familial characteristic, but these children have decided that's not what they're going to do.
Okay.
And they're not going to succumb to that familial characteristic.
See, either they get influenced by it or they get put off by it. So it's their individual sanskars that come into it,
There's a wonderful story, if I may just tell it to you fast.
Yeah.
There were these two brothers. One became a vagrant and he was on drugs, and he finally ended up in prison. The other brother became a wonderful industrialist. He got married and he had a wonderful family life. And their father was an alcoholic and he used to beat their mother, and he was a terrible man. And a journalist asked the boy who landed up in prison, why did you land up in prison? He said, it was because of my father. I never got any love for him. I never did anything. He beat us. He treated us so badly. Where else could I go but down? And he asked the other brother, how did you become this way? He says, I also learned from my father. I learned what not to be, how to be positive thinking, how to build myself up in life. And I owe it all to my father, he said. That's why I am the way I am today. Both owed their lives to their father, but in different ways.
Okay.
And this is what the environment does to you. And you can choose to be who you want to be.
And it's your free will to choose.
Absolutely,
Do I want this or do I want that? That's so nice to end this discussion on this. Thank you so much for being with me on this show, both Aloma and Laxmi.
My pleasure entirely.
And are you done with giving children up for adoption and all that?
No, I'm still working. I still work in that area.
In that area?
But I'm done adopting children.
You're not, oh yeah. In that area, that means people do approach you
Yes,
and then
yes,
you
we still
can
have
help
our
them?
office and everything. Yes, we do. We still work. And I'm still on the government committees for adoption, yeah. So we still work in that area.
And
Correct.
those who want to adopt can still get in touch with you?
Absolutely.
And how do they get in touch with you?
23435549. That's my phone number in my office.
Okay, 2343.
5549.
And for those who are not in India, it's 080
080 before that.
91080.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. And can they write to you, email
Absolutely.
you?
alomalobo@gmail.com.
Aloma,
ALOMALOBO @gmail.com.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
So those listeners, if you want to pass the word on, there is still hope. There is a waiting list, but there is hope. Endless hope. Somebody said, don't say it's a hopeless end, but say it's an endless hope.